Welcome back. You're watching Live from Paris on France 24. It's time now for Campaign Chronicles, our daily countdown to the presidential election. For that, I'm joined as always by our French politics editor, Mark Pellman. Hello to you, Mark.
Good evening, Laura.
And Olivia Salazar-Winspear is here tonight from the media desk. She'll have reaction in the press and on the blogs. Hello to you, Olivia. Hello. Now, starting tonight with law and order, Mark. It's a big theme for Sarkozy, isn't it? And some people have been somewhat shocked by his recent comments over a police shooting. Tell us more.
Yes, first of all, the police shooting, it happened several days ago when a policeman gunned down an armed fugitive and he was put under formal judicial investigation for murder, which is very unusual in those cases. His colleagues are furious. They said it's totally uncalled for, and they staged a very rare and actually illegal demonstration yesterday night in Paris, even on the Champs-Élysées. So this immediately became a political football because Nicolas Sarkozy, who before becoming president was interior minister and thus in charge of the police, jumped in, and he is proposing essentially to introduce legislation where it would allow essentially policemen on duty to open fire to be presumed acting in legitimate self-defense.
Legitimate defense is the term that's been
exactly
used, isn't it? Right.
And that they would be presumed essentially to be acting in self-defense, and there would be a different category for policemen than for all other citizens involved in such incidents. This was described by Marine Le Pen, the far-right leader, as a quote-unquote ideological victory for the National Front. François Hollande, the socialist candidate, met with association trade unions of policemen tonight to reassure them, but clearly he took a much more subtle position. Let's take a listen to Nicolas Sarkozy and François Hollande on this very sensitive issue.
We're going to help develop the concept of legitimate defence to the notion of the presumption of legitimate defence. I think that everyone has to take into account the sacrifice of our police officer. He deserves, I think, more support and more recognition.
I don't want to pit the justice system against the police. That would be the worst thing for a candidate who wants to be the future guarantor of an independent justice system, but who also wants to ensure that the police gets all the respect it's due.
And I should probably point out that an autopsy report did show that the victim was shot in the back, which is contrary to what the police officer has been saying. But that's obviously one that's going to go on and on and on right up to election day. But let's talk about unwanted endorsements. The radical Islamist Tariq Ramadan, a commentator, he has been accused of coming out for François Hollande and Nicolas Sarkozy at the same time. What's going on with that one?
Well, Tariq Ramadan is a well-known Islamic scholar. He now teaches at Oxford University, and he became known several years ago when Nicolas Sarkozy was actually interior minister, and they had a very vivid debate on television, and they were discussing the stoning of adulterous women in Saudi Arabia, and Tariq Ramadan was saying he was in favor of a quote-unquote moratorium on such practices, and Nicolas Sarkozy took him to task and say, how come you're not in favor of ending those practices, but merely suspending them? And thereafter, Tariq Ramadan was seen as someone who was...
It's not the kind of endorsement you want, is it, really?
Right, but Tariq Ramadan vanished more or less for many years, and he was teaching, and suddenly yesterday night on television, he reappeared in the mouth of Nicolas Sarkozy, who said Tariq Ramadan was actually calling for people to vote for François Hollande. So we'll take a listen to Nicolas Sarkozy and the reaction, very vivid reaction, from François Hollande.
What does he have to say when Tariq Ramadan dares to call for people to vote for François Hollande? I've had a debate with Tariq Ramadan. Do you remember what he said? He just wants a moratorium on the stoning of adulterous women. That's outrageous. He's calling to vote for François Hollande, but I didn't hear François Hollande say that bothered him.
He quoted Tariq Ramadan as having called to vote for me. That's false. I have nothing to do with his theories. Mixing things up like that, these lies, how can we accept that from the outgoing president? It says a lot about how off course Nicolas Sarkozy has gone.
So again, someone must not be telling the truth. So the truth, it seems, come from a video that everybody was looking for. What did Tariq Ramadan say? Actually, he said to a rather small public, but now it's become public, that he wants to vote against Nicolas Sarkozy, But if François Hollande is elected, then he would be against François Hollande. So basically saying...
He doesn't like either of them.
He doesn't like either of them, but clearly this is being used. Why is this being used by Nicolas Sarkozy? Because he wants François Hollande to be associated with a kind of quote-unquote Muslim vote. And this is obviously music to the ears, he believes, of the National Front voters that he's trying to woo.
And it's ridiculous, isn't it? Because Tariq Ramadan, of course, cannot even vote. So
Okay, yes, clearly. He's a Swiss citizen.
All right, now, Olivia, Sarkozy's also been accused of trying to really stir up social divisions, hasn't he? And this is because of a term he used earlier this week when he talked about real workers.
Real work as opposed to, I don't know, surreal,
Pretend
unreal
work.
Pretend work that we all do. Yes, this is
Newsreading.
one of bit of a gaffe, really. He used this phrase, le vrai travail, real work, on Monday, when talking about unemployment and la fête du travail, which is Labour Day, May the 1st.
Yeah.
Now, that phrase was ridiculed by us and many people. It was all over Facebook and Twitter, people saying, well, what's real work as opposed to unreal work? Sarkozy then denied ever saying it. He said, I never said le vrai travail. I never said these words. Now, even Le Figaro, a very right-leaning newspaper, accuses him of a certain amnesia. They say Sarkozy doesn't
Selective
remember
memory.
saying le vrai travail when he actually did. And one step further, the Nouvelle Obs on their YouTube channel put together a little video montage of him saying it not just once, but a few times. Let's take a look at that.
Le 1er mai, nous allons organiser la fête du travail. Mais la fête du travail, du vrai travail, de ceux qui travaillent dur.
Vous voulez faire du 1er mai la fête du vrai travail.
Non, non, je n'ai pas dit du vrai travail. La fête du travail, du vrai travail.
Vous avez quand même dit du vrai travail, mais est-ce que ça veut...
Je vais vous expliquer ce que c'est que le vrai travail. Le vrai travail, 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 le vrai travail. C'est ça, le vrai travail.
Oh, they called him out there really badly, didn't they?
Yes, and even his prime minister said that Nicolas Sarkozy probably misspoke.
You can't deny things these days. All right, now Marine Le Pen is she's not in the second round, but she's having a great time, isn't she? Because the two candidates have to win over her supporters, and she's rather enjoying that position,
Yes,
isn't she?
she wrote them an open letter to insult them, basically saying, you're not respecting my voters. The people who vote for me, you're insulting them. Please show some respect and do not try to woo them by giving them what they want to hear. You have to show some respect. Marine Le Pen is expected to give her official position on May 1st, but we already know she's not going to endorse either candidate.
All right. Now, Nicolas Sarkozy's been holding talks today with journalists in Rancy, a suburb of Paris. He's been asked about his strategy and what he'll be doing if he gets elected. Well, Luke Brown caught up with some of the foreign journalists who were at that meeting to find out what they think about Sarkozy's plans.
Since the first round, Nicolas Sarkozy has upped the rhythm of his campaign with a rally every day. The race is increasingly being followed by the international media. For the London Times correspondent Charles Bremner, France's presidential vote says a lot about the country and the candidates.
France elects a king, and the king can sort of write his own script. He doesn't really have to stick to a program like a parliamentary party.
In Sarkozy's rally speech itself, once again he focused on his current strategy of wooing people who chose the far-right National Front. Courting Marine Le Pen's 6 million voters may seem a pragmatic choice, but for these observers from outside, it may not pay off.
It's a protest vote, it's a vote against the way things are. And that is not a vote that is necessarily going to swing behind Nicolas Sarkozy. It's a vote that could go behind François Hollande just as easily. And
This year's campaign has been dominated by what could be seen as minor issues, halal meat and cheaper driving licences. A disappointment for some journalists who consider there are more important things right on France's doorstep.
In Portugal,
there's no debate about foreigners, about immigration. Portugal is suffering from huge financial problems. What Portugal is expecting is that no matter who the French president is, he can find another solution than the brutal austerity for southern European countries, so that we can get some growth back.
This year's French election may have been notably inward-looking, with little talk of international affairs. Whoever wins, though, will have to make up lost ground. The next NATO summit is just 2 weeks after the vote.
All right. right, Luke Brown reporting there. Now, Olivia, I believe journalists from The Economist were at that meeting as well today. They are seriously unimpressed with François Hollande, aren't they?
Yes, The Economist has got a big cover this week, tomorrow's edition, saying François Hollande, the rather dangerous Monsieur Hollande, which seems funny because looking at him there, he doesn't look dangerous at all. But it's a play on words, of course, what he told the City of London. He said, I'm not dangerous, with reference to the fact that he's not from some kind of anti-capitalist leftist fringe. He's trying to, siphon off all their money for social projects. The Economist, however, seems to think Monsieur Hollande is actually very dangerous. There's a bit of a sneak peek here of the article, and they're very scathing of his politics, which are more about growth and less about austerity in terms of European finance. And they even go so far as to say that if The Economist, the magazine, had a vote, they would vote for Sarkozy just to push Hollande out of the race, not because they necessarily believe in his policies.
Okay, all right, that's what they think. All right, Mark, just time to wrap up with the latest polls.
The latest polls are unchanged. They show François Hollande clearly the favorite to win the runoff on May 6th. He has more or less 10% of advantage over Nicolas Sarkozy, 9% today. But it's been the same story, and Nicolas Sarkozy is playing catch-up desperately, but it's uncertain he can make it. He has 10 days left.
All right, 10 days to go. Mark Pellman, many thanks indeed. Thank you to you, Olivia Salazar-Winspear, as well. And thanks to you for watching. That's it for Campaign Chronicles. Until tomorrow.